And just to articulate what it is for those folks who don't know what it is, modern monetary theory, or MMT, is there's the observation that the state can print money, and that's often accompanied by the recommendation that the state should print money. Okay, and it should print money to pay for everything, and that there's no constraint on the state doing this, right? You know, essentially, like if they're pressed on, oh, won't it cause inflation? They say, well, don't worry. If inflation happens and prices start going up, we'll just raise taxes to pull the money we just printed back out of the economy, right? Now, just to show that I'm not making this up, there's a video that you might be able to link or what have you by gosh, it's I tweeted it a while back, but it essentially shows the MMT folks treating the economy as like a tank of water, and they pump in water and they pull it out with taxes and so on. And this is a very naive view for many, many reasons. One of which is, in a time of inflation, if you try to increase taxes, well, people, you know, they've already got lower consumption and they're going to resist that. Number two is, the economy is not a tank of water. It's adversarial, right? Like people will respond to incentives. And one of the things they'll do is they'll move their money into BTC or other cryptocurrencies and so on, and get out of the tank where, you know, you're printing all this money. And so MMT, you know, it can't be really understood in terms of what its people say, but it can be understood from a different sense, which is, I have a gun, right? MMT is the language of the state, the total state, the unlimited state, which says the state can increase taxes to 99% and expropriate everything you have, right? Because that's what that means. Like, print all the money means dilute you down to zero. It's like being able to print trillions of shares on the cap table or what have you, right? And so it means that I can print all this money, and because it's currency within this realm, I can seize any asset of anybody, and do so in a quiet and stealth way, right? Because you don't see your percentage of, you know, market cap, right? Now, one thing I want to be clear about, it's not as simple as just straight inflation, because there's huge deflation occurring in the economy as well. So we're probably going to get something where it's like pandemic deflation, as I mentioned, of all the things people don't want, like concerts go to zero in terms of price or drop substantially. All the things they do want rise in price. Okay. So in one corner is MMT, this is the language of the total state. In the other corner is BTC, which is, you know, maybe the leader of the free world, right? And I think that's a provocative statement, but you know, the US itself is sort of absent globally from the pandemic crisis. You know, it doesn't stand for freedom. Or rather, maybe it does, but it's not like, you know, usually when there's like a flood in some country, you have Marines land and they, you know, hug babies and pose for a photo op, and, you know, it's good stuff, right? You know, like they're moving sandbags. You probably did some of those missions or whatever. And the US is completely absent from the global stage on this. They're not defending other countries because they've been invaded themselves, right? And so who's the leader of the free world? I think it's going to be Bitcoin. Right, Bitcoin is the leader of the free world. Go ahead.
Really, what you're kind of talking about here is MMT is a complete state-initiated process. You devalue the currency. You get people addicted to the state being the savior and having to drive all of the value. And literally, it's like a child and a mother, right? The mother has to take care of the child, or the child doesn't thrive. Bitcoin is some weird way 180-degree difference, and it is coming at it from, in one area you can print as much as you want, in this one you can print zero, right? It is completely decentralized.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of people are wondering, okay, I buy the argument that those two worlds are going to coexist for some period of time. Can they coexist forever, or do they meet in kind of that boxing match in the middle and one has to knock the other out?
So I think that so the analogy I would give is, I think BTC ultimately wins, but it's going to be a giant fight between, I mean, like, you know, think about Facebook before 2016 and then Facebook afterwards. Afterwards, everybody's like, oh my God, this thing is actually extremely powerful, and all these attacks were launched, and it's still standing, but it took more fire at that time than it ever had before. Once Bitcoin hits 100,000, I don't know when. I mean, frankly, it could happen in a week from now. It could happen a year from now. It could happen 5 years from now, or whatever, right? But eventually it will. Once it hits like 100,000, and Bitcoin being what it is, it could happen in a day after being nothing for a long time. Um, uh, when it does, and I have no doubt that it will eventually, simply because so much money is being printed. When it does, then you're going to get another level of state interest in it in all senses of the term. Some states will actually adopt it as like a gold-like thing. Other states will try to stamp it out, but as long as some states adopt it and the internet doesn't go down, Bitcoin will win.